Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of the Stadium Ranters. The first one was such a hit, we had to come back. I'm your host, Wayne Gregoire. I am a featured writer and editor at Stadium Rant, the worldwide leader in great sports writing, I'll say. So definitely check out all the articles there and check out other shows that we have here on Stadium Rant. Before I get into the rules of how Stadium Ranters work, let's go around the horn here and introduce everybody, starting with Nick.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Mullick. I'm, of course, right for Stadium Rant. If you've seen my face before on YouTube, I'm on the Ringside Rant podcast, which will be live in an hour and 30 minutes. I write pro wrestling, football, anything in the book, whatever sports I write it.
Clint.
Yeah, nowadays you can find most of my written content at Sports Illustrated and Falcons SI. It's mostly, obviously, covering the Atlanta Falcons. The NFL draft content will ramp up more there, but in the meantime, my Falcons and draft content, like you can see, is at NFL Draft Dome. I'm very active on NFL Twitter. Yeah, that's a solid intro.
Cam.
I'm Cameron Willie. You'll find a lot of my stuff at my Twitter right here. I mainly write NFL stuff. I'll do a little bit of pro wrestling stuff and NBA, but it's mostly NFL. So a lot of my stuff, I do my predictions every week. Keep an eye out for those as well.
All right, perfect. Well, let's get into the rules here, and I will apologize to Clint because I had NFL Raft Dome apparently instead of Draft Dome, so that's my bad on the.
NFL Raft Dome looks sick. It's cool.
So, but the rules of the game are as such. We're going to have questions introduced to the panel here. Each of them will get 60 seconds to give their answer, followed by a 30-second rebuttal round in case they disagree with any of the other guests. And then at the end of each round, I will award up to 3 points. I could give them all to one person. I could give one to each person, or however I deem to hand them out. It doesn't really matter because just like around the horn, the points don't matter. We're just having fun. And with that said, let's introduce the first topic of the evening. Travis Hunter won the Heisman Award. He had 2,231 points. Ashton Genty came in second with 2,017 points. It was the closest margin, I think, in like 15, 20 years. And my question for the panel is this. Travis Hunter played 1,360 snaps. He had a PFF defensive rating of 90.5, which was second among all corners in the college football. He had an offensive rating of 85.3, which was eighth among all wide receivers. He won the Biletnikoff Award. He won the Bednarik Award for Best Defensive Player in college football. So the question isn't, should he have won the award? The question is, should this have been unanimous? Starting with Nick, you have 60 seconds.
First off, he absolutely deserves this Heisman Trophy. It was either going to be him or one other person. And that one other person heavily impressed everybody. Ashton Genty. This guy was having one of the best rushing seasons of all time. He was at one point compared to Barry Sanders. Like, we haven't seen this before. And he came out of nowhere, which heavily impressed many, including myself. But Travis Hunter deserves it because he played two different positions, one on offense, one on defense. And he was the best at it in the NCAA. The unanimous part, though, you can't do that when you have the type of season Genty has with the amount of rushing yards, amount of touchdowns. He was dominant in Boise State. I think it will be interesting to see where these two go on draft day because they're both Heisman Trophy contenders and they deserve it.
Absolutely. I think draft day is going to be interesting. That's a whole nother topic. I think we talked about that in the first episode about where running back should go and where Genty should go. I know me personally, I wouldn't take Genty in the first round because I don't believe in taking any running back in the first round. But he will go in the first round. We just be foolish to think he wouldn't. So, Clint, what are your thoughts? Should it have been unanimous for Travis Hunter?
Definitely not. I mean, for starters, while I think Hunter is obviously very deserving, if I had a vote, I would have voted for Genty. I think the precedent of you've kind of said now is that it's almost impossible for a running back to win it at this point. I mean, the kid had 2,500 yards and had like 10 plus yards per carry kind of, production. I think Genty will ultimately go in the top 15 picks of the draft, whether or not we agree with it or not. And I'm okay with it. I think he will. But no, I think people have the wrong gripe, talking about Hunter winning the Heisman. It's like, no, the Heisman makes complete sense. The one that blew me away was the Bednarik. I thought that was that one not as much. The Biletnikoff, that one I was kind of like, we milked that one a little hard. I think more if you had to gripe about Hunter getting a vote in one spot. I think it was more of like those two smaller awards than the Heisman. Look, he was going to win the Heisman. Genty knew he was going to win the Heisman. That was too much money involved.
All right. Well, and
he's very deserving. He's very deserving. And
Cam,
last comment I would say, anyone that didn't vote for Ashton Genty or Travis Hunter as their number one vote that has a vote should have their voting privileges revoked. That's just silly, and just you're trying hard to be different. Like people that I saw, somebody had some votes. I saw one person voted for Curtis Rourke out of Indiana. Like that's just Curtis Rourke's dad shouldn't even vote for Curtis Rourke on the Heisman for first place. Like that was silly, and that. For this to have been the closest one you've said in the last 15 years, to vote for anyone but those two is just obnoxious.
I'm definitely in favor of taking votes away from people. Cam, your thoughts on unanimous for Travis Hunter?
I definitely agree with Clint. Anybody that voted for anyone other than those two should not vote anymore. It was a two-man race, and only a two-man race. I personally think Genty deserved it more. Not that Travis Hunter didn't deserve it at all. I think like it was neck and neck. To make it unanimous, definitely not. I think it should have been even closer than it was. I think what Genty has done, especially this last season, on a team like Boise, to take them as far as they did, and it essentially on his back, and everything he's done, like Nick said, he's being compared to Barry Sanders. So I don't think Travis Hunter didn't deserve it, because he certainly did, but I believe it should have been a little closer and more in favor of Genty at the end of the day.
So the question that I bring up with people when it comes to the Travis Hunter argument, right? Obviously, we all said he's a deserving candidate, as is Genty. But the thing that I keep bringing up is that I have no problem with Genty getting votes or people voting for him, provided that, he had 11 and a half sacks, as a linebacker. But to have a guy, like I said, who's a top 10 wide receiver in college football and a top 5 cornerback in college football, it's not even that he just played all the snaps. It's that he played all the snaps at an elite 99.9 percentile level. To me, it was mind blowing. We've never seen anything like it before. We might not again, but we'll see. Clint, 30-second follow up.
30 just additional seconds about that.
Sure.
I think too, I like the mention you said about Genty carrying the whole team on his back. I think that kind of sided with me, as well as wanting to say that I would have voted for Genty. I mean, he's got them in the playoff. To have that small market of a team, a Mountain West kind of conference team in the playoff is outrageous in a good way. And but you can't take it away from either one of them. I'll say with Hunter too, there does need to be some cred given to the fact that kid's stamina has to be second to none. And you said that we might not see anything like him again. My last statement to that would be, I live in the Atlanta area. I remember when he was coming through Collins Hill, his high school, and I can tell you from then, I've never in my life been so blown away by a player's ball skills. I mean, that was like the definition of like you went to one of those high school games or you watched it on GPB and you were like, oh, you're going to be a top 5 pick. And you knew that when the kid was 17. So, for him to win the Heisman, I could have said that when he was about 17 years old.
I went a little out of order. Nick, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. These two kids earned it. With Genty, he, like I said, he was being compared with Barry Sanders, but with Travis Hunter, we've never seen a player like this in football. I mean, the closest thing is Shohei Ohtani with baseball. I mean, he is basically doing the same thing there, but instead he's on offense and on defense. Well done, well deserved, and I wish them luck to wherever they get drafted in a few months.
All right. And Cam, final thoughts on Travis Hunter?
I think what Clint said was interesting about how we've never seen anything like Travis Hunter before, and that we might not see it again. I actually have, to some extent, the opposite thoughts. I think we will see more players try to replicate what he did, not to the same success, though. I think we'll see more people try to do the dual position thing and try to catch the magic that he did, but I don't think it will happen.
That recruiting pitch, coaches are going to be wearing that one out, man. You're right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big one, trying to recruit. Hey, you can play 2 positions. Travis Hunter did it, and their ego and the way they feel, their athleticism, they're going to try. So I do think it'll be interesting to see how they both translate to the NFL and where Travis Hunter lands, offense or defense, when he does go.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it could be something that we start to see more and more, kind of like with Shohei Ohtani. I remember when he came over, that was part of the deal, was that he wasn't going to sign anywhere that wouldn't let him pitch. It's like, I'm going to pitch and I'm going to hit, or I'm not playing for you. And he had the clout to do that because he was a free agent, essentially, coming from Japan. And then I remember that the Reds drafted Hunter Green, who was kind of the same idea. He was a pitcher and he was also a position player. I think he's kind of gone more the pitcher route, though. I think that they've kind of pushed him into that role. He didn't have the same kind of leverage that Ohtani did, but I would love to see more college players coming in playing both ways. With the end of the round, I did give everybody 1 point just to get started. We're all warmed up now, so a little bit of favoritism is going to come in the next couple rounds. And we are going to start off. This first round is going to go Clint first, followed by Cam, and then Nick. And the topic is this. Bill Belichick has announced he is going to be the head coach at North Carolina. Now, obviously, he won 6 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots. North Carolina last year was 6-6. The alumni did increase the NIL budget from $4 million to $20 million to help him put this team together. And he's kind of said that this is going to be a program which is going to be almost like an NFL prep school. You're ready to go to the NFL. You come here for a year. We're going to teach you how to play in the NFL, and then you're going to go get drafted. So starting with Clint and going around the horn, how do you think North Carolina does in 2025? Oh, we lost him. All right. We lost him, and we are out of order here. I'm sure he will jump back in. There we go. So we'll start off while he's getting logged back in. We will start it with Cam. Cam, how do you think the North Carolina Tar Heels do in 2025? What do they need to do in order to do that?
I think with them bringing Belichick in, I think that right away shows that they want to win now. They want to turn things around right away and try to, right now they're not seen as one of those top schools in the country, but adding Bill Belichick immediately makes them a destination school for any players. And like you said, it's an NFL ready thing now. If you think you can go to the NFL, you're going to go to North Carolina, you're going to play for Belichick. And if you can make it with him as your coach, then your confidence is going to be up. I think they're going to throw all the money they can. They're going to let him throw all the money he can at whether it's players, whether it's his staff, anything like that. I saw a rumor, I don't know how true it is, that he wants to get Michael Lombardi involved as well, which I think would be huge for them. So I do think just the addition of him right away makes them a bigger deal. It reminds me a little bit of how when Dion went to Colorado, it's just going to boost them through the roof, and people are going to be rushing to go there and play for him now.
All right. And Nick, I don't know how much your fandom is influenced. I know me personally, being a Patriots fan, I am more excited about North Carolina season next year than I am about the Patriots season. But I'm curious to get your thoughts. How do you think North Carolina does next year? How does Bill Belichick get to that point?
It's going to be interesting to see first who he assembles on his staff, because many people are focusing on how Bill Belichick will do, but it's who he surrounds himself with that I'm more intrigued with. And I think that's step one. He's already doing it with Freddie Kitchens. He's trying to make sure that his son, Steve, secures himself. I think this is going to be a very, very, very boom or bust type season for UNC. Something not a lot of people are mentioning is, who's he going to go after in the transfer portal? I think he's going to go after a lot of University of Washington players, because his son Steve had a ton of influence in there, and there's already rumors that they're going to be taking a few of the top prospects there, and they're going to come along with them. Sort of like what Deion Sanders did when he went from Jackson State to Colorado. And it worked out very well for him there. And let's be real, Bill Belichick has experience in college. He'll be fine. I think they'll win, and it wouldn't shock me if they're in the top 10 seeding in the NCAA.
All right. Well, I think that's an interesting take. And obviously, with Clint out, we'll kind of go back. We won't put the timer on for this next Around the Horn segment here, but I am curious. Or actually, Clint's back in. Hey, Clint, you're back in. So we just went through the first
difficulty there. Apologies.
That's right. The question is to you then. How does Bill Belichick and how does North Carolina do in 2025, and how do they do that?
Look, they'll be elevated a little bit from this past year just because, I think Matt couldn't really match or replicate kind of some of those teams he had, with Drake May, Sam Howell, some of those talents like Josh Downs. I could keep going. We get the point. It'll be easy for him to do that. I think for starters, it's kind of, what can you imagine he's going to get started? I think he'll look at the lines of scrimmage, obviously. You've seen this week, he got a big transfer out of Holy Cross, which is, there's a lot of stand-up comic content right there to be had. But, I think seeing him on the line of scrimmage, I think it's just so cool to me in a different way because of his resume, but in a similar way of his celebrity. it's kind of like the Dion model with Colorado, how they're going to go for the instant wow factor. I mean, look, man, for Bill Belichick, I don't care who you are. That's kind of like if Saban came to visit your high school. It's like, dude, holy shit, that's Bill Belichick, But, I think I couldn't tell you their record off the top of my head this year. But, conversationally, if you told me that they had 8 wins right now, I'd guess he takes them to, a 9-win team maybe. But, I mean, it's going to take some time for him and to kind of sell this whole, minor league NFL thing. But it's going to be the most interesting North Carolina football ever.
All right. Well, let me ask this, because we'll go to Nick again on this one, kind of the follow-up question. And I won't put the timer up there. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Now, so Belichick, he wants to turn this into, like I said, a football, NFL prep school kind of situation. I don't think he's going to be out there recruiting in high schools, because that doesn't serve that purpose. He's going to want to get guys who are 1 year from the NFL. I'm surprised, like I said, he did get the guy from Holy Cross. He got a guy from Delaware. He got a guy from East Carolina. When do we start seeing the Ohio States and the USC and the Florida State and the Florida transfers going to North Carolina, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I think it won't happen immediately. I think it's going to happen once his first year coaching in UNC is completed. Because if you go from Ohio State, leave that program to go to UNC, and Bill Belichick isn't, a good fit there, that is a tremendous problem, and it could affect their career as a whole. They left a place in Ohio State where they could easily be trained and groomed for the NFL to UNC, but it all depends on how the coaching is. And I still think Bill Belichick will be fine, because he's one of the greatest coaches that we'll ever see in our lifetime. But it all depends on how he does after that first year. And it's better to be safe than sorry. And that's why I think they'll stay in Ohio State or in the Floridas or in the Georgias or in Alabama before they go to UNC. It's best. It's the motto of I'll see it before I believe it. And that's how I feel the transfer prop will probably be for these top recruits, unless they're like deep down in the depth chart.
And your thoughts, Cam, does Bill get any big name or big college guys to flip for him in this first year?
I think Nick is right. I don't think we see anything like that right off the bat. I think maybe second year, but also one thing to be considered is I know Belichick said he's there to stay, and he wants to stay there and coach. But I do think at the end of the day, if the offer comes to go back to the NFL, he's going to take it. So I think that should be considered by any of these players, the Ohio States, the USCs. If you want to go play for Belichick, they have to consider the fact that he might not be there if they come there in his second year and he's gone by his third year. They're going there for him, and then he's not there anymore. So it's something heavily to be considered. I think a lot of these players are going to be a little more hesitant to go there, but like Nick said, he is Bill Belichick at the end of the day. If he sees success and UNC sees success, they're not going to look ahead at that. They're just going to jump and head right over for him.
And Clint, your thoughts on, again, you're in the SEC country. Do you see any SEC people potentially just like abandoning ship to go play for the greatest coach of all time?
I think it's how you define abandoning ship. You're not going to have starters at schools here in the SEC, ACC level schools that are going to jump to UNC just because they're that excited about Belichick. It'd be more of a situation of, a UGA backup transferring to go be a UNC starter, or a Tennessee backup going to be a UNC starter. You get the point. It's like, I think you could maybe see a little bit of that. Definitely more likely year 2 if he can come out and show some kind of foundation year 1. But look, he's going to get his. I mean, you look at some of the talent that UNC signed with Mac, having, and it's not like Mac Brown is some nobody, but he doesn't have the wow factor name-wise of Bill Belichick, obviously. It's like, he's going to get his, particularly, what did I just say about what Mac was doing? Mac was doing that with a $4 million endowment. It's like, you multiply that by 5. It's like, no, Belichick's going to get his. I mean, I think it's a nice start. You mentioned some of the names, got a guy from Holy Cross, got a guy from Delaware, people that are leveling up a level. I'm interested to see more of the taste of, like I said, somebody, like, for example, we said UGA, like Julian Humphrey, who's been kind of the main backup corner for a year or two, kind of got himself a little frustrated with it. He's in the portal. I think he's likely headed to somewhere like A&M, for example. I kind of just threw a stray at A&M, but they're not as good a program as Georgia, so whatever. But you get the point. I mean, there's so much we can say of, what Belichick's going to do, what they're going to do, what we're going to do. We don't know till we see it. The one thing I would say that was said previously about if he gets an NFL offer, he'll be gone. That very well could be the case, but I'm not so certain that the very little activity that he had last year and then going into this year in terms of interest, that this wasn't him kind of throwing his hands up like them days are over. And kind of how he's so much, I've always dreamed of being a college coach.
Well, I will for this round here award everybody 1 point again. We'll keep it close. It looks like Clint's a little bit frozen. We'll see if he comes back with us. But we are going to jump into the third topic, going from college football to pro football, and we're going to be talking about Brock Purdy, because Brock Purdy went undefeated as a rookie after he was the last pick in the draft. Then he goes his second season. He takes the team to the Super Bowl. This year, they've had a bit of a rough start. But when you look at Brock Purdy's career numbers, this is a guy who completes a high percentage of passes. He throws for a good amount of yards per game. I know he gets a bad rap, or he doesn't get the love that he deserves because of where he was drafted, kind of like Brady early in his career. But my question is this, Trevor Lawrence got $55 million a year. Jordan Love got $55 million. Joe Burrow got $55 million. And then Dak got 60. When all is said and done and Brock Purdy signs this new deal, which is most likely going to be this offseason, Cam, is Brock Purdy going to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL?
I don't know if he will be. I don't necessarily think he should be either. Definitely, the way this seems to have gone, though, is even players that shouldn't be paid what they are getting these massive contracts. Trevor Lawrence got a huge deal. Like you said, even Dak Prescott, he got paid a lot. And frankly, I think that was a mistake from the Cowboys to give him that kind of money. So I do think, as relatively speaking, Purdy does deserve a lot. But when you put him up against the Joe Burrows and the Josh Allen and the Lamar Jackson, I don't think he should be making more than them. So I think the 49ers, they should be willing to give him a lot, but I don't think they should be willing to quite break the bank when they have a lot more issues that need addressed currently, especially with their injury problems. And, they give Purdy a lot of money, but they need to be careful of what they're spending here so that they don't just absolutely lose everything they have just to keep him.
And Nick, I know you're going to be next on this one. And my question for you is same question, which is Brock Purdy going to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL? As we know, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL isn't the guy who had the best season. It's the next guy who becomes a free agent, right? So in your opinion, is Brock Purdy going to be the highest paid player in the NFL next year?
Oh, it's not only going to be an if, but when he gets paid, and he deserves it for where he got drafted and how he's playing. But Cam, you're forgetting one thing, and I do like how you mentioned with Brock Purdy, like they want to save money. That's the reason why there's a franchise tag involved here. I think he's absolutely going to get franchise tagged. Again, he also got impacted with injuries. I think he had a shoulder injury, if I remember correctly, and his play was affected there. Better be safe than sorry. Give him the franchise tag for a year. If there's a holdout, which there most likely will be with these kind of things, let him prove it one more year. And if he has this phenomenal year with the 49ers, who will absolutely get more depth on that roster, including at wide receiver, biggest mistake of all time, then they'll give him the contract. It's not an if, but when. It's not going to be coming up, but in 2 years.
All right. And Clint, you have the final 60 seconds. Will Brock Purdy be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL next season?
Kind of like Nick said, I think most likely he will, whether or not it's justified, just because he's kind of next up. It won't last. But I think two things to kind of keep relative when talking about this Purdy discussion is, one, the Niners window and how much it's closing. You hear a lot of the Shanahan frustrations, which is, kind of comedic. Them being more like a 500 team this year and just kind of that frustrating window closing. And I think secondly, we're talking about Purdy, say, versus the Lamars and the Trevor Lawrence contract and the Josh, et cetera, Dak. It's like, I think we have to remember the charm changes with this new contract. The whole Mr. Irrelevant, cute little story doesn't matter anymore when you're getting paid 50, 60 million a year. Like, yeah, that was nice in the past, but as far as now and going forward, this he's this little cute gap model looking 7th round pick who makes like $900K. That charm is going to be gone. So I just think in terms of how great he's played and how great a value he's been, it's just remember, it's like projecting it to if you want to invest that much. And I think with their closing window and the fact they're going to have to open it back up, if I was a Niners fan, I wouldn't be super comfortable about this.
And Cam, I want to kind of almost redirect, but not quite. But my question for you is this: if he doesn't become the highest paid, and I don't know Brock Purdy personally, I know none of us do, right? So I don't know what his mindset is. But could he have that Brady mindset where he says, "Listen, I don't need to get 60 million. I want to be here for the long term. I want to help us win. 40 is plenty for me. I mean, I was the last pick of the draft. I'll take 40. I'll take 30. You know, is it possible he takes a home game?
My family's got a farm, and I just know how to just be, just get down and be a tough guy. I don't need all that money. No, yeah, that's a good mention because you're right. We forget that sometimes. Not to cut in, but that's well put.
I think you are right. I think judging by what we see, like you said, we don't know him. I do think he seems like the type of player that would take a more team-friendly deal, especially I don't know if this is what Nick alluded to, but the Ayuk deal, not super team-friendly. It did not go well at the end of the day. I think Purdy is the type that will take a deal that helps out the team a little more. I know Clint said their window is closing, and it does seem like it is. So if they want to reopen that window or get anything, they're going to have to build a lot around him, and they're going to give him some money. But I think he seems like the type that he wants to win and he wants to stay there. So I think he'll take, like you said, 30, 40 million would be just fine for him, especially with the work that the team needs around him.
What do you think, Nick? Could he take a team-friendly deal?
Yes, but it all depends on what Brock Purdy, the man, thinks about. And going back to what Clint said about, if let's just say he's got that big contract, it takes the luster away. Didn't do that for Tom Brady. Didn't do that for Jalen Hurts, even though we got plenty more years to go with Jalen Hurts. Didn't do that for Russell Wilson. So I just think it's kind of a little ridiculous that was said, because it all depends on Brock Purdy, the person.
All right. And your thoughts, Clint? I know you kind of alluded a little bit that it is possible he takes a team-friendly deal. Do you think that is a serious possibility that he doesn't go for broke with the 49ers?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like we said about the window. You could have a conversation for him to buy in about, we're going to invest around you, and that'll be better in the long term. Because I think, I don't know Brock Purdy personally, but I do think that he's realistic enough to know that he is not a Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen kind of level athleticism where he's going to go play hero ball. He's got to have support around him, and with some aging out guys like Kittle, et cetera. They're going to have to start hitting the draft hard, and they're going to have to start getting some free agent talent, just building it out. I mean, he's going to have some help. Hell, if he was smart, he would take less money to try and get some other talent.
All right. And
if Pat Mahomes can do it, Brock Purdy sure can.
Perfect. I'm keeping the score close. I'm keeping to give everybody one. We'll let it come down to the wire here, the ninth inning. And speaking of the ninth inning, we're going to our next topic, which is baseball, getting away from football. And that is Juan Soto, who signed a 15-year, 700, and I have it right here. Let's see, $765 million deal. Now, my question is, Juan Soto had a WAR, or wins above replacement, last season of 7.9. Let's call it 8. Basically meaning that he's going to give you 8 wins more than you had last year if you had an average player. If you had a better than average player, you're not going to get those 8. You're going to get whatever the difference is. So starting with Nick, with a WAR of 7.9, is Juan Soto worth $700+ million?
First off, he deserves that money. Any type of athlete would be a fool to reject it. Now, it's absolutely an overpayment, and I'm pretty sure that it was done because Steve Cohen wanted to get one up over the Yankees. But the thing that I find the most concerning part is the length of that deal. It's not the amount of money that he got, because he was absolutely going to get that amount of money because he's such a great power hitter. It's the length that concerns me, because anything could happen in 15 years. Heck, anything could happen in 5 years. Soto might not even be the same player. He might even have a slump like Giancarlo Stanton did when the Yankees acquired that contract from the Marlins. He absolutely deserves the deal, but it's the length that concerns me. And the WAR is kind of insane to give it him, but his power will be the biggest strength. Now, the biggest weakness with the Mets, find a way to fix the pitching, because that contract is going to cost them on the pitching side.
That's a good point. And I meant to bring it up in the lead up. And so, Clint, I'll mention it when I go to you. Before Alex Rodriguez signed his big contract with the Rangers, he had a WAR of 10.5. When Shohei Ohtani signed his contract, he had a WAR of 10 when you combine his pitching and his hitting WAR. Again, 7.9 was $765 million in overpay by the Mets.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, like we have to remind ourselves there's no salary cap in baseball. So it's like if Cohen wants to spend that money, who cares? He's got plenty of it. As far as playing the checkbook games, that was the whole excitement in terms of him buying the team. I mean, obviously, I'm a big Braves guy in the Atlanta area, so I hate the Mets, and I didn't like to see him get Soto, but at the same time, I won't sit here and say that I was exactly scared, haven't seen that deal. I'm like Nick. I think the 15 years, nobody's worth a 15-year contract in baseball. Nobody's worth a 15-year contract in baseball. But as far as the cash, who gives an F? And I think I totally agree with Nick as far as it was a statement toward the Yankees. You want to talk about a guy that, not that he walks the streets, like a regular person or anything, but man, talk about the tale of two different sides of the tracks about the Mets loving him now. The Yankees, he's going to be a historical hate going forward for them for the next 15 years. So in that sense, as far as the cash, yeah, he's worth every dime. The marketing, the fun for Cohen, this is his toy, and sticking it to the Yankees. But if it was like an NFL situation with a salary cap, hell no.
And Cam, your thoughts on $765 million for 7.9 wins above replacement?
I think I agree with Clint here on this one. If they have the money to spend and they want to do it, then absolutely go nuts. Especially for someone like him, they want to win, and they got really close last time around. So I think bringing in Soto, it's a big game changer for them moving forward. And I actually the fact that Clint did say there is no salary cap in baseball. So yeah, if they have that kind of money and they want to drop it for Soto, and as far as the time of the contract goes, I know there's an opt-out 5 years in. So I think there's an opportunity a few years from now where if things aren't going one way or the other, they can explore some options here. But I do think he is worth the money 100%, and I think his addition will be felt for the Mets moving forward.
All right. Well, let me ask this question, kind of almost a rephrase, but still the same question. Now, obviously, he can replace most likely Harrison Bader, who had a WAR of 1, which is what would put the Mets, if everyone matches their WAR from last year, at about 97 wins, second most wins in baseball behind the Dodgers. So in that case, it would work out for them. But let me ask this: for $765 million, if they were to look at, say, a middle of the road starting pitcher, middle of the road reliever, couple middle of the road infielders, could they add 12, 13 wins above replacement by spending $765 million instead of 8 wins? Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good point. It depends on who's available on the market. And looking at the current core that the Mets have, I keep mentioning the pitching. They have one of the worst pitching rotations in the league, and they lost their best pitcher, Luis Severino, who's going to Oakland. And well, not Oakland anymore. They're kind of Sacramento, Vegas, whatever. But point is, there's other needs, there's other spots that they got to fill in this team. And when you give this gigantic chunk of change to one player, that's not going to work out. Look at how it's gone for Trout.
Clint, your thoughts? Could they have spent that money and gotten more wins than the 7.9?
Maybe, but screw that, man. They're a New York media market. He's not going to go split up that kind of money on 3 Moneyball players that aren't that kind of name value. I respect going for it. And look, at the end of the day, speaking from NL East country, it's like Philly's got Harper as that mega stud face of it. Braves got Acuna as that mega star face of it. And with respect to Pete Alonso, now you've got that real face of it, that real stud to hang that you got to have. And I think I'll just end there.
Okay. And Cam, your thoughts on, could they have spent that money to get more wins than they got with him?
Oh, I was going to say the Mets haven't won since '86. Screw it, go for it. Sorry.
No, like I said before, I think I fully agree with Clint on this. Yeah, they could go a couple of middle of the road players here and try to go that route, but I think bringing in Soto, you bring in that big name player. It's a complete game changer. There's you get that chance once. He said they haven't won a championship in 40 years or so. So you go for that shot now if you can take it, and you give him that money if you have it. Absolutely.
All right. Well, that will bring us to our final topic of the evening, which is the NBA. We're going to talk some basketball, and we're going to be talking load management. I know the 76ers got criticized for the way that they handled Joel Embiid early in the season. He is hurt again, but they were trying to manage his minutes. They got a lot of crap for that. And I know obviously they didn't start this. LeBron James didn't start this. It was started by Greg Popovich and the Spurs way back when. And it seemed to work out for them winning championships. He had a plan in place. My question for you is this: is load management, NBA load management, is this because nowadays players are soft, or is this a medically good idea for players to prolong their careers? Clint, you have 60 seconds.
If somebody could show me that it is prolonging their careers statistically versus, say, the era of the 90s, early 2000s, et cetera, more so like I grew up on, then I'd hear that argument, and not to sound like, Mr. Hard Ass, back in my day guy, but, we all know that it's all a little silly, some of it, and a lot of it's exaggerated, but I don't feel too passionate about it when it's the kind of thing where it's like when it's team wide, it's like the coach is letting them do it. The team's letting them do it. It's not like you're talking about a situation of them being like, oh, I'm not showing up. Like I think when you're in agreement like that, especially with the people writing your checks, and hey, simultaneously, it is okay for the media and the fans to be frustrated that, came wanting to see the star player that night, that came wanting to ride on that player that night. I speak from Atlanta. If you showed up and Trae Young decided he was taking the night off, yeah, you'd be pretty blowed. But, and that was kind of a loaded answer, but you get the point.
Cam, your thoughts. Are today's players soft? Is that why we have it? Or is this something that's good for them physically?
I think it could be something that's good for them. Like Clint said, we'll see, I guess, in the next few years if it does extend careers. I think my opinion on it is if a team is contending, if a team is working hard and they're in a position where they can afford that load management, if Jason Tatum takes a night off, the Celtics, they can afford to lose Tatum for a night. If you're a team, I know Nick earlier before we got on was talking a little bit about the Hornets. If you're a team that's not super strong, if you're not really contending to that level, maybe those load management, letting those players miss a night or two isn't a great call. It's a double-edged thing because you want these players healthy, but if you're not contending, then you need to play your starters and you need to put them out there. Absolutely.
All right. And Nick, obviously you're going to get the last say on this before we go into our 30-second rebuttal stage, but in your thoughts, load management for the NBA, is this because the modern day player is soft, or is this something that is medically beneficial to them?
Like you mentioned, the San Antonio Spurs were doing this when they were at their height in the dynasty. So them calling it just a soft move is just ridiculous. It's a strategic move, not only for players to get healthier, but think about this, to help the culture be maintained. I'll give you an example. Even though it didn't work out with the Brooklyn Nets, they were load managing Kyrie and Kevin Durant when Durant was coming back from his torn Achilles. They were doing it like with the 76ers, Ben Simmons, you got all these other players. It's for them to be happy, for the culture to be maintained, and for them to realize, maybe if I take a night off, they'll understand my needs as much as the team needs. And here's another thing people don't mention. When the load management is happening, it also gives younger players a chance to showcase themselves. It also gives, other players to see what fits and what doesn't belong when it hits the playoff time. It's so strategic. It's so smart. While the ratings are dropping because of it, it's strategy that matters.
All right. Well, the 30-second round, we'll start with Clint, and my kind of add to this, or my question that I wanted to add to this is obviously when I talk about whether it's medically beneficial, we look at a player like Nolan Ryan in baseball who used to pitch frequently over 200 pitches a game because he wouldn't get a relief pitcher. And again, Nolan Ryan is the man's man that we all know he is, right? But the point is now they have guys on a 100 pitch clock, and once you get to 102, you're yanked from the game no matter where you're at. And Nolan Ryan would probably call that soft, but we've learned that it does help the arm. It is beneficial for the arm to get that rest. So Clint, again, is NBA load management similar to the 100 pitch count?
They don't make them like Nolan Ryan anymore, for one thing. They don't make them like Nolan Ryan. But, I kind of liked how you laid it out with baseball there, because I think one thing, it's like the guys are getting more injured in less games now because they're too physically dominant. Like, I loved how someone put it. It was a couple of weeks ago. I was watching an NFL show, and they were saying, one reason these guys are getting hurt so much versus, say, like 20, 30 years ago is you're starting offensive tackles 310, 315 pounds. They used to be 275, 280. That's just physics, man. It's like when you got multiple guys at multiple positions running 20-plus miles an hour coming downhill at you, it's like that's just physics. It's like you're going to have more injuries. The body is not built to handle that kind of thing. I think you apply that to baseball and these guys, it's like, and this will be my last thing because I know I went over time, but it's like, man, even back when I was, hell, I'm about 30. It's like, even back when I was coming up in like high school ball and stuff, it's like, oh man, you threw 95. You were throwing cheese, dude. You were throwing heat. Hell, they're all throwing 98 now. You know, it's like, I just think you get the point.
So Cam, your thoughts, is NBA load management comparable to the 100 pitch count in baseball?
I'd actually, one thing that I would compare it to, and I know Nick might agree with me on this, is you hear a lot of professional wrestlers talk about ring rust, and you hear them talk about if it's better to work, 5 times a week or 1 time a month, things like that. I think having a consistent, work routine, going out there consistently, I think that's good for them just as much as taking rest. But I do think, like I said, if you're not contending, then you got to have your stars out there no matter what. That's as far as I'm concerned.
And Nick, you get the final say on this. Is this comparable to the 100 pitch count?
Cameron, I love you. Thank you for saying that. For the 100 pitch count, it's a different sport because in baseball, you have younger kids who are pitching faster. They're more strategic with their pitches, and that type of amount of pitches being thrown affects them to this point, which is why you got to have a 100 pitch count just so that they won't get overexhausted. There's a thing called the arms race with Tommy Johns. In basketball, it's totally different. Not only are their bodies, more maintained for it, but they won't get easily as hurt as baseball is.
Perfect. And I do want to thank everybody here. We're going to give everyone a chance to, again, let you know where you can find them. I do want to name our winner for the show. I'm naming Nick Mullick the winner of tonight's show because I love the passion he brings. And I said that about his writing as well. I can tell you're fired up and I love it. So we'll let you go first, Nick, about where people can find you and why they should be listening to you. And then we'll go to Cam and then we'll close things out with Clint.
My God. First off, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be on the show, Wayne. I appreciate it. Cam, Clint, you guys are awesome. You can find me. You see my @ here at Nicholas Mullick. I write on Stadium Rant. You can see all my articles on there. And like I said, in about 45 minutes, I'll be live on this YouTube channel to talk some pro wrestling with Ringside Rant. So stay tuned and you'll enjoy the show there.
Cam.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find a lot of my stuff right here at my Twitter. I write for Stadium Rant. It's mainly NFL stuff right now. Once the season starts to come to a close and we're moving out of playoffs into the offseason, I think I'm going to lean more into the professional wrestling stuff. So keep an eye on that. Like I said, every week I do my predictions articles, so keep an eye on those. I've been trying to get a perfect week, and I keep missing it by 1 or 2. I think I'm going to get it this week.
And finally, Clint, it is NFL Draft Dome, not Raft Dome, but that's where you can find you. But give your pitch.
Hey, it's better than my first article when I started writing with Sports Illustrated. They had my writer bio incorrect. And so forever, my URL to my author bio is Clint Gross. So it's okay. You could have done worse. It's the 5th grade graduation all over again. But very familiar with Wayne and Nick in particular from writing with Stadium Rant. And, nowadays you can find most of my content, like I said, writing with Falcons SI, covering the Falcons beat at Sports Illustrated. And I'm really active on Twitter. I mean, anything I do, any content, like anything, it's on my Twitter is my name at NFL Draft Dome, and you can find a whole lot of BS from me on there. As you can tell, I can rant on the Stadium Ranters tonight.
All right. And I am Wayne Gregoire. I am a writer and editor at Stadium Rant. You can follow me at Wayne_Gregoire on Twitter. I am also active, although I haven't been the last few weeks, but I am back at it again. And we are looking forward to doing another show of Stadium Rant next week with a new set of writers and hopefully just as much fun. I appreciate you guys coming out tonight. And I hope you guys have a great holiday.